Hey everybody, welcome back to Creating Haley. And in this episode, we are making the Amish Star. And you can see I have a little pencil drawing here of what it looks like. So I'm only using two colors of fabric. I'm using actually a white and a blue in paying homage to the Amish or Amish. We say it Amish here in Pittsburgh. I don't know what's right. I don't know what the Amish prefer, but anyway, this is the fabric that you need. One 4.5 inch square, four 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles in the background fabric, one 6-inch square for our half square triangles, and then four 3 1/4 square for our flying geese. That's all the background fabric. And then your color fabric or your fabric A pattern, whatever you want it to be. One 6-inch square for our HSTs. So these two match. This one and this one match. One 5 3/4. So that's almost 6 inches for our flying geese. And then 8 2.5-inch squares. So those 8 2.5-inch squares make up that corner, this one, that one, and that one. So there's the 8. That's accounted for. So we're not doing anything with those making units. We're just putting those in as is. Now for the others, that one 4.5-inch square is right here. And that just leaves these other units. So this is a flying geese unit right here. Flying geese unit, and then we have a background fabric on top of that. So we're going to make 4 of these units. See that unit right here, a flying geese and a background, and right here a flying geese and a background, and right here a flying geese and a background. So we have 4 of those units, and then these corners, we have these little bow tie things. Those are half square triangles. So if you look at it very closely, this is a 2.5-inch square, half square triangle. This is a 2.5 square, half square triangle. This is a 2.5-inch square, half square triangle. And then there, and then here, and here, and here, and here. So we have 8 of those as well. I just heard a cat. There she is. Say hi, Jabrina. Saying hi, everybody. So we're doing this Amish Star for August. And let me show you the fabric that I chose. Here we go. So, because Amish clothing generally tends to be like a blue linen and a off-white linen fabric, I chose these colors to pay homage to the Amish Star. So you can see I labeled it. So this is a 6-inch square for our HSTs. And then for our flying geese, we need one 5 3/4-inch square. And then here is our 8 2.5-inch squares. These are in the color, or you can say fabric A. And then in fabric B, or the background, I did our rectangles, 4 2.5 by 4-inch rectangles. And these are just as is too. We're not making anything with those units. And then we have 4 3 1/4-inch squares in the background fabric to make our flying geese. We need one 6-inch square for the HST, so these two mate. And then this one 4.5-inch square goes in the center. So we can just set this aside. So we don't do anything with this. We don't do anything with these. And we don't do anything with these. We don't do anything with these off the top. Okay, so I'm just going to set all these aside for now. I'm going to put them behind me at the drawing board. So all of those are kind of on the outside here, and then plus that one in the center. We don't need that for now. Right now, let's make our flying geese and our, this is called like, quote, Magic 8 HSTs. So we're going to make 8 half square triangles out of these two fabrics. Okay, so let's do this one first. These are fun. This is going to come together pretty quick. Let's see if we can make this whole thing in one unit, in one video. So here's my color. Here's my background. And what you want to do on your background, now mine happens to be light. Maybe you switched yours around and yours is dark, but I chose a light background. And on the back, I already drew lines. So you want to draw a straight line from corner to corner on one diagonal and then corner to corner on the other diagonal. And I drew a solid line for that. I just used pencil, nothing fancy. And then I drew a 1/4 inch dotted line on each side of those drawn lines. So you can see that. Yep. I drew a 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch dotted line on each side of those solid lines. So that 1/4 inch, that 1/4 inch away from the solid line, that dotted line is where we are sewing. The solid line is where we are cutting. Okay, so, sorry, there's fuzz. So I know this is the back that I drew on. This is the front. So I'm going to put right sides together. And these should be perfectly square. So there they are, perfectly square. They line up great. Now I already have white thread in my machine here. So I want to make sure I have the right stitch that I want to use. And I'm in the right position here that I want to use. So I have the right thread, coordinating thread. I'm just using like a cream color off-white. And my stitch length is at 3 meters. So we're going to do that. So now if you're starting on the corner and you want to use a leader to start, you can do that because sometimes the corner gets eaten into the feed dogs. So you can always start there. And then, so this is real time. So just line up your needle with your dotted line. And again, make sure it's even. And if you want to stick a pin in your fabric somewhere to make sure it does not shift, because sometimes my fabric has a tendency to shift, just the way I sew. And then go ahead and start sewing straight down your dotted line. Now see, I pulled that pin out too aggressively. And here, let me just show you. You don't have to break the thread. In fact, when you come to the end, you don't have to break the thread. You just take it out, spin it around, and then keep going down. But I want to show you what happened when I pulled that pin out. Maybe you can see here. Let's, right here. Can you see where the line is and then where my stitch line is? Yeah, I pulled that pin out too aggressively, and then that shifted my fabric all this way. So can you guys see that? That pencil line is where I should be stitching over, and I messed that up just by pulling this too aggressively out. So what you should do is not be as aggressive. Now I can, if I want to, re-stitch over that line. In fact, I think I will, just because I know my stitching gets wonky anyway, and I'm going to slow down the stitch a little bit. And actually, I might be outside of that now. So I just really screwed that up for myself. So I'm just going to actually take this out. Oh, here we go. We start off right at the beginning of the video with a mistake. So, but you know what? That happens sometimes. And so you just have your old seam ripper ready. And whatever mistake you make, just look at this. You just erase it right away. No biggie. So pull out those stitches and then keep on going. Okay, and if you want to, you can even pull back the fabric and see if that is in a straight line. You can kind of like finger press it to see where that is. And that's right on the line. So I'm just going to leave that. Yep. All right, so here we go. Second line down. I'll try to be a little bit more careful. I'm not pinning it this time because I don't need to. The fabric is already stabilized with that first line of stitching. And I had a slower pace and I did a much better job. You can see I sewed right on that stitch line. I sewed, the dotted line. I stitched right over the dotted line and we are perfect on that. Okay, now another tip to do is to stitch right before the dotted line, and that way it's because fabric, even that one little stitch line has space, it takes up space. So now I'm going to interject here. Just lift your presser foot, don't cut your thread, spin this around, give it a little bit of extra room there, place that back down, make sure your needle is lined up with your dotted line, and then keep going. So as I was saying, your fabric takes up space when it folds. So that's sometimes how you get wonky cuts or wonkiness in your project due to something like that. So now that I did this, I'm going to take this over to the cutting mat right here, the cutting surface, and I'm going to use a straight ruler, and I'm going to place this on my twirly mat here, and I'm going to cut this 4 times. I'm going to cut this way, this way, this way, and this way. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now there is no line this way. Now if you want to create a line, you can. But this X should give you, like right in the center, that should give you your center line. But you can draw a line if you want to. Now I'm just trimming one side to the other. Do not move your fabric. Just take the ruler off, spin your ruling mat around, and then place very gently your ruler back on top of that solid line, so you cut straight from corner to corner. Now if you're using scissors, obviously you need to pick up your fabric. So if you're using scissors, I would probably draw a straight line this way and then a straight line this way. Straight line. But what I'm going to do with my, because I have no line here, I'm going to use my ruler and line up this edge. Oh, can you guys even see that? I'm going to line up like a solid inch line. So maybe I'll just pick one of these solid inch lines and just line that up with the edge. And then place this edge, the cut edge, right on the center of that X, just like you're making a pizza slice. And so I know it's going to be straight. And then I can line up this ruler and this ruler to see that both sides are dead on. And then very gently, very carefully, cut along that line, and the same thing here. Line this cut edge onto the center of that point, of that cut point, and then line up a line this way and a line this way, so I know it's absolutely squared up, and cut. And there you go. Now I have, when you split this apart, you have 4 half square triangles. So when you open it up, bingo! That is called the magic 8 HSTs, because with 2 pieces of fabric, I now have 8 of these little guys, right? All right, now you are going to want to square these up. So I pressed it usually to the dark side. You press this seam allowance to the dark side usually, and then we're going to square these up. I'm going to save that until I get my flying geese done, and then I'm just going to square up everything. So I also want to press these. So I press and then square up. So we're just going to take these over to the ironing board right here, and I'm going to leave it right there. All right, so those are 8 half square triangles, or HSTs. Okay, so that was pretty easy, right? Now we're going to make our flying geese. So we need this 5 3/4 inch fabric, and we need these 4 3 1/4 inch fabric for our flying geese. Now on the back of these 3 1/4. Oh, I should also mention that this block finishes at, or it's unfinished, at 12 inches. And I'm doing A Year Full of Stars is 12 1/2 inch blocks. So sure how to increase the size of these to make it 12.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of a border at the very, very end. And then you can use whatever color you want to add your border. But what we're doing is we're doing our So a Year Full of Stars at Creating Hanley. And this is August. So I thought August was a good month to do the Amish Star. And so that's what we're doing. So on the back of these, just like what we did with the other fabric, we're going to make one line, not two, but we're going to draw one line from diagonal to diagonal, corner to corner, a solid line, and then we have two dotted lines a 1/4 inch away from that solid line. Now, let me take you down to this surface. So we line up. So we add the diagonal. So we line up this square right here. And then we take so this means that these are face down. So I drew on the back of this, although on this fabric, it doesn't really matter. This fabric, it does. This definitely has a front and a back. This one, not so much. So it doesn't really matter for me for this background fabric, but it may for you. So just make sure you're on the correct side. You want to draw your pencil drawings on the back. And then I'm going to put this one down, and then I'm going to put another one right on top of it. And those corners should overlap. And if you drew your pencil line straight, oops, got this fuzz here. Oh my gosh, here comes my cat. And if you drew your pencil line straight, let's see if we can tighten that up. Your line will overlap exactly right. Okay? And that is exactly how you want to do it. Now, if you want to add a pin, what you could do is add a pin on the side that you're not going to sew. So I'm going to throw that right in there. And that means I'm not going to accidentally take that out because you know what happened the first time I aggressively took out a pin. So I'm just going to pin this just on this side. And I'm going to sew on this side. So this is all lined up. Everything is good. Take it over to the machine. And again, you can use your leader if you want to, so your point doesn't get sucked into the feed dogs, but I'm not going to here. I think it's safe out here. There's no feed dogs here. So I think we're good right here. And then I'm just going to start sewing. And again, if you want to sew just a tinge on the inside of that line, feel free to do that, because when you fold the fabric over, that is space that can throw your fold or your cut off. Okay, so there's that, and I already lost a pin. All right, so sew this down on this side, directly over both. There we go. All right. Now, your fabric should look like that. That's what it should look like. Now I'm going to cut this. So I'm not going to use a ruler. This time I'm just going to use my scissors. But you want to cut straight down that solid line. You can use your rotary cutter. If you want to. Now, when you open these up, you can finger press this. This is what they look like. Just like that. Okay, so both of these. Now I'm going to take this over to the ironing board, the pressing station. I don't know why I call it a pressing station, guys, but I do. And now this seam allowance is going to actually fold to the light side. So normally we do the seam allowance to the dark side, but this one just goes better to the light side. So I'm just going to do it that way. And so you want to do both of these so that we can make our 4 flying geese units. So this will make our flying geese units. So here we have this again. Okay, now we take this. These are already drawn. And so just take one of these and line up your corner like so. So we're gonna overlap this, and then these corners, you know, these line up exactly. They come together at that point, and we're gonna do the same thing. So on the dotted line, and if you want to throw in a pin, feel free. So actually I'm not, because that already is shifting my fabric. So I'm just gonna do this very carefully. Right there, get that started. All right, there we go. And then I'm not gonna break my thread yet. Spin that around and then do the other side. Super. And then you can chain piece and do the other one right now, or I want to show you what this looks like. So cut right down the center, that straight, that solid line. And then, so your two pieces come apart like this. And when you open this up, oh my gosh, look at this, guys. It's your flying geese. So you press to the light side again. Bingo. There it is. Okay. So we're going to make 4 of these. So let me do this one. Open this one up. Press it. So this is going to come together pretty quickly. So here's our other flying geese, the other half of that. And then we're going to trim all these up. So we're going to trim the half square triangles, and we're going to trim the flying geese all at the same time. Now they're trimmed to different sizes, but we're going to do all the trimming at once. You can trim as you go if you like. Okay, so I'm not going to cut the fabric here. I'm just going to spin this around. And boom, we're done right there. Okay, now trim down the center, press this open. You can kind of see that barely. To the light side. And if you want to use some steam, go ahead and use some steam. I just have this water bottle that I've already told you guys about in other videos. I don't put water in this iron because it can corrode the inner workings of the iron. And so I just prefer not to do that. Okay, so here we go. Here's our 4 flying geese. All right. Now, we still have to press all these half square triangles. So I'll try to do it in a place that you can see. So we just, and you don't really need to watch all of it. Now I am going to iron these to the dark side. That may or may not work out in this quilt, but if you want to, you can always open up your seams. So if you want to, you can always take the time to, I can't even get it, open these seams and iron them open like this, if you choose to do that. I'm going to try to save some time here and just iron them all to the dark side. Okay. Now they actually want to open to the light side. They actually do want to open to the light side, so I'm going to use a little bit of water to steam them so that it relaxes the fabric, so it kind of eases them into thinking that they do want to press to the dark side. We only do that to save a shadow for being underneath. So you can see, maybe you can see, this is a light colored fabric, and when it's in a quilt, there, you can kind of see that. There's always going to be that shadow underneath the fabric. So that's why we usually, if we have the opportunity or the option to do it, we iron to the dark side, because you can see there is no shadow here. No shadow. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a thing. All right, so iron those. Now, I did not pre-make this, so we're making this real time right now. So I'm going to show you how to trim these. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can trim these. Let me get my ruler here. Now I'm just using this OmniGrid. This is a 6-inch OmniGrid. You can use whatever you have. If you have a flying geese ruler, then by all means use that, because that is what you want to use. Yeah, how do I want to do this? Okay, so if you have a 45-degree angle on your ruler, you can line that up with your 45-degree angle on the flying goose or flying geese somewhere along the way, so that it measures or it cuts at it should be 2.5 by 4.5, I believe. The finished flying geese, or the trimmed flying geese unit should be 2.5 by 4.5. So I'm measuring, and you can't even see that, but so let me bring this up. Here's a 45-degree angle, and it's upside down, but I'm just putting this line along right where those two fabrics meet at the 45-degree angle mark. And then I'm going to shift my fabric to a point where, so right there, to where it trims. So here's all the excess that we need to trim. Okay, so when you have it on a flatter surface, you will get a much truer trim. Okay, and if you're using that special ruler for flying geese, then no worries. That's apparently a very fantastic tool to have, but if you don't have it, don't worry about it. Okay, so I'm doing this on this side too. This one's pretty straight. So there actually might be two sides that are pretty straight, and you just need to worry about the other two sides. But make sure that you trim off. And what these little tags are called dog ears. I don't know why, but they're called dog ears. You can label them something different if you don't want to cut dog ears. Something called dog ears. But yeah, so I'm actually going to trim this one 1, 2, and 3/4. Do I want to trim it at 3/4? Or I should trim it at 1/2. I'm going to trim it a little bit bigger. I can with this one because I might need to square this one up a little bit better. All right. Already I can see this one is a little bit wonky. And not exactly sure why, because I was pretty good on the trimming on that. But anyway, I'm going to just set that one aside for now. And we'll see how these ones come out. But that can, that can happen with your trimmings too. What do I want to do? Okay, so let's trim off that now. So I just want to trim this side and this side. Okay. And if you want to fast forward through this part because it's probably super boring, go right ahead. But if you're doing your Amish Star in real time with me, then we are doing this all together right now. And if you finish up before I do, then just fast forward and we can meet up at the place that you are ready. Which is going to be trimming our half square triangles next. Okay. So that's why I wish I could edit, because this is pretty boring, I'm sure. And yeah, we're all gonna come out at different times at different places. So I get it. All right, so here's our flying geese. Now, I did not trim these all to the same size, so that may cause a problem in my quilt. Now or my quilt block. Now make sure you trim all your blocks to the correct size. Should be 2.5 by 4.5. I made mine a little bit bigger just to give myself some wiggle room, but that can come back to bite you in the butt later. So our half square triangles should be 2.5 by 2.5. Now I actually do have a little, sorry about that, a 2.5 and 2.5 inch Omni grid. I'm not sponsored. I've never seemed to be sponsored by anybody, but this one has a diagonal. Why do I do that wrong? Diagonal, so I can line up the half square triangle. This should be pretty perfect right here. So I just line that up and then trim if there's anything to trim. And line that up, and there's not a whole lot to trim here. I'm just going to trim off the dog ears. In fact, I'm just going to use these scissors, trim, just like that, trim, boom, that one's done. And you can even just measure it if you want to, and I probably don't even need to trim any of these. These ones seem to be pretty good, but these ones probably are pretty good. So I'm just going to trim these. So you're going to do this 8 times. Now, this one, I'm just going to leave it. What about this one? That one's okay. And yeah, these might be a tiny bit wonky, but I think it's going to work out all right. So again, this is just your Sew a Year Full of Stars sampler, star block of the year, star block of the month, Sew a Year Full of Stars, sampler star quilt. So however you want to do it, it's up to you. All right, now these units are made. Let's take this back here. So basically what we're doing is a 9-patch. Now we're getting to the point where we are going to create a 9-patch quilt block, which is super easy once we get to that point. Okay, so now we can grab these, the rest of these. I think I need a beverage. Okay, now remember this is 4.5 is in the center, so I'm just going to set that one aside. We can start, actually no, I'm not going to set it aside. We can start designing our block. Okay, so now with your little paper picture in mind, we're going to place this in the center. And then take your flying geese units, because that's the easiest. So take these, and we're going to put the background to the background. So you can already see my flying geese is too big. That's going to be problematic, guys. Okay, so background fabric to background fabric. Okay. And then these rectangle units go on the other side of these. So, you know what? Yeah, if you place this on top of here, you can see I did not trim well enough for my flying geese, because these should be the same size. So I'm going to have to trim these up much better. I'll trim these up much better because this is going to make my quilt super wonky. So what I'm going to do then is try to save time and place all these on top. Try to be like super careful. Place all these on top of each other in hopefully the same place. But there are a lot of seams here. And you know what I'm going to do next? I'm going to try to trim all of them at the same time. And that is going to probably be disastrous. That might be disastrous, guys. All right, so I think that's going to be disastrous. Yeah, that's not going to work. So anyway, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do so you guys can see, because you're already at this point. So we're going to do this. We're just going to put this together, okay? We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. So make sure your backgrounds are together when you put your flying geese in place. And then these rectangles go on the outside of the flying geese. So those are perfect, right? Yep, just like that. Now you take your half square triangle blocks and the rest of your 2.5 inch blocks. And we place a 2.5 inch fabric A, or your color fabric, or whatever fabric you have there, right next to these cornerstones right here. So they should be nestled in between the background. So you see how there's a star here already? Do you see that? It formed a star. We did this star before in one of the other months. So this should look pretty familiar to you. Now we're just adding a little bit of extra on the outside, and then these stars, or I'm sorry, these solids go at the diagonal. So let's see if I can back this up so you guys can see it a little bit better. So they go on the diagonal. So you can see that here, you can see that here, you can see that here. They go on the diagonal. Now, our half square triangles, the white part, or the background, goes as such. So it's always going to be like opposite. White, blue, white, blue, white, blue. Wait, let me look at this. This goes this way. Yeah, like that. Okay. Yes, so it creates a bow tie. Right. It creates a bow tie just in the corners, just like so. There we go. Okay, guys. That is it. That is how you put together your Amish star. I love it. All right. Now, I think that's enough for this video. This is going a little bit long. So, in the next video, so basically, you can do a couple different ways. You can sew rows together. You can sew columns together. So, if you do that, you can sew columns together, or you can sew your rows, or you can sew these units together. So, sew this unit together, and then sew this unit, and then sew this unit together. And then once you have these units together, then you sew them together. And then you do the same thing over here. Sew these units together. Sew this 4 patch together. Sew these 2 together. Sew this 4 patch together. And then make that column together. And then you sew these together, and then sew those both to the middle piece. And then you only have these 3 pieces, and then you sew them together. All right? And that is how you make your Amish star. For our Sew a Year Full of Stars, quilt along, quilt as you go, block of the month, star block of the month. So I hope you make that. Let me know how it goes for you. Leave a comment. If you can, put a picture of your finished project in the comment section, and or go to the Facebook page. You can definitely post your picture on the Creating Hanley Facebook page, and maybe even, I might put an Instagram picture on there. Probably not, but you can check me out at Instagram too, at Creating Hanley. Here's my little label. All right, you guys, I might make part 2 to quilt this. So actually, I'm probably going to do that. So in the next video, you might actually see me sewing these together and then making the quilt sandwich and then, you know, doing the quilt on top, the quilting part of it on top. All right, so stay tuned for part 2. And you guys, thanks for hanging in there. Y'all are great. Love y'all. Peace out. See you on the next video.